No mai haere mai, no mai haere mai ki te whare wānanga o Waitaha. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Prime Minister, the Right Honourable John Key, Honourable Jerry Brownlee, Mayor Bob Parker, Roger Sutton, Chief Executive of the SERA, members of our community, other members of Parliament, the Mayoress, our Chancellor, Pro-Chancellor, and members of the senior management team, and most importantly, our special guests, the awardees today and their friends and family. On behalf of the university community, a very warm welcome. My name is Ian Town, and it's my pleasant duty to MC this event, which is all about the students and the wonderful story of the Student Volunteer Army. So a very warm welcome, and I'll, without delay, ask the Vice-Chancellor to say a few words.
E na mana, e na iwi, tēnā koutou katoa. Te whare wānanga o Waitaha, tēnā koutou. E na huna mate, haere, haere, haere. Hoki atu ki te huna ora, tihei mori ora. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome to all. Welcome to our special guest, the Prime Minister, and to all of those here today to recognise community engagement. I do not need to recite for you the history of our students. It spans not just a year since the earthquake in September. It spans over a century of often young, but not always young, who have come to this institution here on this site or in its central city site. And they have come with a curiosity to acquire disciplines and then stand with courage on the knowledge that makes a difference. It is not at all surprising to me that an institution with our attitudes and abilities would be a fertile ground for the response that we saw in September and again in February. But it is amazing to see it happen and take the form it did. The University of Canterbury has always rather taken for granted that we would be a part of our community, that our staff and our students contribute to that community often in ways that are under-recognised and undersung, understated. So Kiwi, really. A third of our students have work-relevant experiences before graduation. Many of our students volunteer on and off campus in many different ways through the clubs and societies which are a feature of student life. And of course, our staff contribute in so many ways throughout the wider community. What we really haven't done to date is put an academic framework around how we might think about that. And inspired by what we saw in September and again in February, the university, in its academic frame, cast around and found an academic program about service learning. We've called it Christchurch 101. That service learning program has academic foundations in North America, where Tulane University, hammered by a cyclone or floods altogether, created a framework which we adopted and most recently offered back to the University of Vermont after their cyclone hit them. The idea of service learning, the idea of reflecting on the clinical experience of engaging in a community is not new to the world, but it is new to New Zealand and it is new to this institution. The QS Ratings organisation has today announced a 5-star rating for the University of Canterbury. And one of the issues they rate upon is what they called the third mission of a university, which is community engagement. Those ratings matter because they are external validation of what we are and what we aspire to be. Our vision of a graduate of this university is obviously one that has acquired the skills of the discipline they have chosen and have shown their competency in that knowledge. But there must be more to that. I would like to think a not too distant future, we could look back on all our graduates and say three things about them in addition to their academic attainment. First, that they had all had the opportunity for a study abroad experience for credit as part of a globally connected community. An international experience prior to graduation in study abroad will increasingly become an important norm. Secondly, it should be that all our graduates have a work integrated learning opportunity prior to graduation, so that they better understand the context in which their knowledge may be put to use. And thirdly, they should have all had the opportunity for community engagement and service learning. Graduates who carried with them those experiences, as well as the knowledge of the disciplines that they had sought to develop capability in, would define a different kind of graduate, attract a different kind of student, and position this university along the path which we have already embarked on. Today is a stepping stone in that journey, but there can be no doubt that observing the response of this generation of students to an extraordinary emergency, the way in which they self-generated their own infrastructure, dealt with the logistics by applying their knowledge and new technologies, and worked with authorities who initially were somewhat sceptical about the role this army might play, to establish their own place in history, is an extraordinary thing to have been able to be a part of. We have said, and we will say again, the University of Canterbury students who have been through the last year will be defined in so many different ways by that experience. They are a resilient crew, and I have an enormous respect for those who are here today and those who you represent. Thank you.
The awards today that Rod's mentioned are really a representative group of the leaders amongst the group itself. Many of you are aware, thousands of students were involved. We aren't able to recognise them all individually, but a number have been selected for three tiers of awards. The Gold Award recognises that an individual was a critical and essential member of the Student Volunteer Army in that core group. They were very much involved early on, as Rod has said, in establishing the way of operating and the back office supports. They were providing strategic input and advice, as well as demonstrating outstanding leadership. Silver Awards recognise significant contributions to the effort through commitment, organisational ability and sheer hard work. And the Bronze Awards, which we'll deal with third, are those that made noteworthy contributions through a huge commitment of time and effort throughout the whole months of activity. So Sam Johnson. Sam was the founder, the man in the pink shirt, the leader of the whole thing. It says here that he handles the pressure with poise and maturity, and that's clearly evident. Well done, mate. Thank you very much. Anthony Rowan, a Gold Award, who used his professional skills to provide invaluable expertise. Chris Duncan and Thomas Young, who are part of the operations team. Jonas Bergler, a Gold Award for his online operations skills. Sam Gifford, who was logistics and coordinator of equipment. Jade Rutherford and Gina Scandrett, who were the voice of the SVA throughout. Cohen McNabb, the President of the UCSA. Well done, my friend. Cohen tried to keep them under control and lost. Lewis Brown, a Gold Award, who was a drive and determination, a huge amount of media activity from Lewis. Morgan Perry and Nathan Durkin, who were one of the key team leaders within the small group work. We're changing gear now to the Silver Awards. Now, amongst the stars in the Silver Award is Erin Jackson, who was the Big Top manager. Well done. Gary Mason and Doroshenko Demjan were involved on the ground operations work. Good. Hamish Drake and Andrew Chalmers were ground operations sector leaders, sergeants on the ground. Good. Henry Jenkins, who was the SVA sign-in designer team leader. The group of three, I think one is not present, but Jason Pemberton, Laura Campbell and Peter Jagowitz, the Technical and Human Resources team. And Sean Maskell, Transport Coordinator, the buses. In absentia.
He's in Auckland at the moment sorting out the problem.
And last in this group, William, who was involved with the staff computer setup. Well done, William. Excellent. Moving then to the bronze category, we start with Michael Mullins, who was a key man in the sponsorship stakes. Well done, Michael. Claire Laredo and Hannah Duda were both involved in food deliveries and a video for the Adelaide Express. I'd like to acknowledge Richard Evans, who I don't think could be here today, who was a team leader within the street teams and a key contact with the Ministry of Social Development. So, round of applause for Richard. Alex Millen, who was involved as a Big Top coordinator. Well done. Tom Nation and Matthew Prendergast, who were involved in transport of wheelbarrows all around the place. Chanel Harris, who was in charge of emails, a daunting task, I gather. And a group of three, Jonathan Atkins, David Terry and Megan Lookhart, who I don't think can be here. They were a core team in working with federated farmers in the Farming Army. And last but not least, by any means, Rachel Linehan, who was in charge of student welfare throughout and coordination with the UCSA. Well done, Rach. Excellent, and that concludes the presentations. Thank you very much, and it's now my great pleasure to invite the Prime Minister of New Zealand, the Right Honourable John Key, to say...
Kia ora tātou. Ian, thanks very much. Can I acknowledge Rod and all of the academic staff at Canterbury University. It's great to be back here, and my university is looking in great shape, I've got to say. So let me just say, if I was to draw an analogy, I think the Tongan football supporters, rugby supporters, are the equivalent of the student army when it comes to the Canterbury earthquakes. So why do I think that, other than you're both a noisy lot, I'm sure, when you're out doing your things? It's because you are both participants in a major event, but disproportionately your contribution was way and above so many others. And I think if we go and look at modern day New Zealand, it's become quite a fashionable thing to convince ourselves that young New Zealanders aren't as good as the generation that preceded them. And actually what the Student Army demonstrated to all New Zealanders is that our young people are very caring, they're future focused, they're prepared to get out there and make a difference, they're articulate, they're innovative, they're creative, and they're very fine young New Zealanders. They're going to be great leaders of our country. And for me personally, to see their involvement in the help of others who were in great need was a wonderful thing. They did it off their own back, through their own energy and their own inventiveness, and we should be very proud of them. So I'm really here just to say thank you on behalf of all the people that you helped. Thank you for showing New Zealand that our young people are in such great form and such great shape. To your parents, you can be very proud of them. If you want to help pay off their student loan, I'm sure they'll appreciate that. They asked me to mention that on the way in. And keep up the great work with all the things that you're doing. At one level, we hope we don't need you again, and for obvious reasons, but we do want to make sure that you take away all the memories of what you've done and you're actually proud of it. Can I also just ask you to thank the many, many thousands of other students that worked alongside you. I know there was an enormous number. Everyone played their part. You went to extraordinary lengths, but the whole operation worked because there were so many of you there on the ground. And I think for a lot of people, it wasn't just the liquefaction that you dug up and put into a wheelbarrow, or the fact that you knocked on the door to make sure that people were okay, or the helping hand of picking up a fence that had fallen over. It was that you were there, that they could talk to somebody, that they could see that you cared, and you mobilised so quickly. And I think in a time of crisis, that's what's critically important. So we're very proud of you. I have no doubt many of you are going to go on to achieve absolutely great things. And New Zealand's in great heart with you coming up at the helm. Thanks very much.